We don't have time to go into each of the other items, so let's just pick something that you think is going to be a big risk for 2017 in those other items.
Well, in the Middle East, right, well before you have technology taking away jobs, in the Middle East, technology is what took away the power of oil. The energy revolution means that Saudi Arabia is no longer the swing producer for global oil. It's the United States. That's new technology. In 5 years, suddenly the thing that gave legitimacy to these governments, the ability to take huge money out of the ground and give it to their people, justifying their rule, has just eroded dramatically, and it's going to get worse. In addition to that, you have all of these people in the Middle East that have access to their smartphones, and they're not. If the United States, if we don't watch, one of the major networks, instead we watch CNN, we watch MSNBC, it's polarized. But most of us don't care. Most of us don't vote, right? Where in the Middle East, if you're not watching Al Jazeera, you're watching Sunni news or Shia news or tribal news, and it's causing a lot of confrontation. And these are governments that need privacy. They need to be able to conduct their affairs quietly. And now you've got the age of WikiLeaks and Panama Papers. What happens if the way the Saudis spend their money and the way they behave and the way they work with the United States and even Israel behind the scenes, what happens if all of that becomes public? These countries are going to fall apart. So I think that it's the driver of technology that really underpins so much of why the Middle East can't be fixed, so much of why terrorism and radicalism is growing across the Middle East, and so much of why it's so hard. Everyone tries to figure out what we can do to fix it, and instead all we do is military attacks against the symptomatic aspects as opposed to the root causes. It shows why this is going to be so hard in 2017.
It's interesting that other predictions for 2017 mention a lot of things that are like expected, like obvious, that you leave aside, like terrorism, Syria, or climate change, or other stuff. Why didn't you go into those items?
Well, I mean, two reasons. First of all, terrorism for me, I mean, the ISIS has already lost 25% of their territory in Syria and Iraq. They will probably lose the caliphate this year. Terrorism is going to become a bigger risk nonetheless. But we wanted to understand not the headlines, but what's behind the headlines. We're trying to provide, for people that are going to spend the time to read this report, we want them to understand why the risk environment is growing. Telling them that Syria is going to be bad this year is not useful, right? Understanding that the Middle East is fundamentally unfixable and is reverting to a pre-Westphalian state, that governments are failing because technology is unwinding the place, that's really important. Climate. We didn't mention climate because, frankly, most of the big risks around climate are still longer term. And there's no question, you look at a country like Yemen where there's no more water, this is a climate issue. And you look at the extreme storms and droughts that are coming in sub-Saharan Africa, this is a climate issue. But for the major economies of the world, there still is a belief that you can kick this can down the road. And so I just don't expect that climate itself is going to be driving a lot of global headlines in 2017.
Segundo informações preliminares da Organização Mundial de Meteorologia, a temperatura global aumentou cerca de 1,2 graus Celsius se comparada com os níveis pré-industriais. O número atual está próximo do limite de 1,5 graus estabelecido pelo Acordo do Clima de Paris, assinado no ano passado. Uma das razões para a temperatura atingir esse nível foi a ação do fenômeno El Niño.
Long term, that's one where clearly the unwillingness of major governments to suitably address this issue is going to bite us in the ass.
Let's talk about Brazil. So, how do you see Brazil in this geopolitical recession scenario?
Well, you know, this is a year where we're seeing so little reform in emerging markets all over the world. And in many places, that's because the leaders don't have the political capital to actually push long term. Now, in Brazil, that's also true. Not much political capital for the acting president who just came in on the back of the impeachment of Dilma Rousseff. But it's precisely the fact that the Lava Jato probe continues to take place, and that there's an enormous pressure not only on the acting president, but also on members in Congress of corruption and of concerns that maybe they'll be pushed out too. They don't want that. And they understand they need to get things done that keep the Brazilian economy humming along. And so we think that actually, because of the weakness in 2017, pension reform, very unpopular pension reform, actually gets done. And that's a clear market positive for Brazil.
Se o texto for aprovado, a economia prevista de 680 bilhões de reais em 10 anos. Para o governo, a importância da reforma não é apenas para o ajuste fiscal, mas para a manutenção do próprio sistema.
Eu não vejo a não reforma como uma opção. A alternativa não reforma é ocorrer o que aparece hoje em vários estados, que você não conseguir pagar.
So oddly speaking, 2017, despite all of the problems, looks better. And certainly after the elections coming up, we think Brazil is going to be on a better trajectory.
So you're long on Brazil?
We're long on Brazil at this point. We really are. Yeah, look, I mean, it's the first office that we opened in an emerging market. And, you know, we didn't do that because we just want to be friendly. I mean, look, everyone should want an office in Brazil because it's so much fun to be there. But we made the decision because we believe in the market long term. If you look at the BRICS, the reality is that Brazil is by far the most developed. Brazil's the one that really has rule of law. Brazil's the one that has a business community, business class, and a financial class that is most advanced, most capable of working globally. I mean, China's a much more exciting market. China also has much more volatility, but they happen to have a bunch of nuclear weapons. Not a great market, right? And India is just taking too long. Even though the trajectory for India is great, it's from a very, very low base. So I think there are really good reasons to believe in Brazil long term.
One final question. Even though the outlook for 2017 looks so negative, you're still an optimist. What reasons for optimism do you see?
Well, number one, because I exist, right? I mean, you know, at the end of the day, we do have to remember that this is an extraordinary gift. We have no idea why we're here. And it's incredibly important to take advantage of that and be productive. You know, it's just, I'm existentially optimistic. I'm not a glass is half full. I'm like, wow, there's a glass. That's extraordinary. You know, that's kind of my view on life. I grew up in the projects. You know, I mean, I am the American dream, and I'm highly aware of the fact that a lot of Americans today no longer feel that they have those opportunities, and so it really is incumbent on me and on the firm Eurasia Group to do what we can in an environment where the work we do is more important, is more relevant, and makes a difference to try to help. But beyond that, I do think we need to understand and recognize in the last 20 years, we have taken 1 billion people out of poverty on this planet. And that is the most extraordinary accomplishment that humanity has ever made in our short time on this planet. So the tools that we have to make a difference are simply unprecedented. And even though 2017 is going to be a very hard year, and we may slip back, and a lot of people may do a lot worse than they were doing, we do need to recognize that it is precisely the individuals that matter. And in a G0 world, where governments are doing less, individuals are going to do more. It's going to be the Bill Gateses, the Mike Bloombergs, Pope Francis. I mean, these are people that are going to step up to the challenge because human beings respond to adversity. And if you can add to that list Ian Bremmer and Eurasia Group in even a small way, then I'm going to be very happy that what we accomplished in 2017 was worthwhile. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
And unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth.
Tá realmente cena de guerra aqui em Washington nesse dia da posse de Donald Trump.
Not our president! Not our president!
Thank you.